はい、皆様、リンク J のライブウェビナーにご参加いただきまして誠にありがとうございます。今日はですね、日英ライフサイエンスセミナー Vol.2 ということで、英国がグローバルをリードするライフサイエンス系事業紹介、その AI 創薬及びプロセス最適化編をオンライン形式にて、お送りいたしております。私はリンク J の常務理事をやっております、曽山と申します。よろしくお願いします。今日はですね、今画面でお示ししているプログラムに沿って進めてまいります。皆様からのご質問はですね、ウェビナーの Q&A 機能、こちらからお願いいたします。パネルディスカッションの時間に、極力ですね、お答えするようにいたします。議論の盛り上がりとかですね、質問数に応じて、終了時間が10分ほど延長する可能性がございますので、よろしくお願いいたします。また、お願いが2つあります。まず、ウェビナー終了後にですね、アンケートフォーム、が出てまいりますので、ぜひですね、今日のイベントの、感想をお寄せいただきますようによろしくお願いいたします。そしてもう一つ、ウェビナー中のですね、録音、録画、画面キャプチャー、これらはですね、お控えいただきたくよろしくお願いします。またですね、このイベント、英語の、字幕をご利用いただけます。字幕はですね、市販されているアプリを使用しておりますので、リンク J、オクセンティア、バイオスパイア、社はですね、誤訳とか欠落に関しては、責任は負いかねますので、よろしくお願いいたします。本シリーズはですね、オックスフォード大学の関連企業であるオクセンティア社、のですね、シニアコンサルタントであり、兼、リンク J サポーターでもある、松永正史さん、に、モデレーションを、行ってやっていただいております。それでは松永さん、よろしくお願いします。
はい、佐山さん、ありがとうございます。
はい
オクセンティアの松永と申します。昨日までイギリスは暑かったです。38度でした。今日は涼しくなっています。暑いイギリスからお届けします。ボリューム1はですね、5月にやらせていただきました、ハイブリッドで、それで、エコシステム全体の、トピックだったんですけれども、もう少しサイエンティフィックなところの話が聞きたいよというフィードバックを得ましてですね、ちょっと味を占めて、ボリューム2、3ということを企画させていただきました。今日はボリューム2ということで、AI 創薬、それから、プロセス設計というところを、素晴らしい人たちに来てもらいました。ボリューム3はですね、夏明けのですね、9月に予定しています。再生医療とか、オルガノイドとか、そのあたりのところを、お呼びする予定になっています。で、今日のタイトルはですね、英国がグローバルをリードするという、ちょっと大げさなタイトルに見えるんですけども、これ決して大げさじゃないんですね。英国のスタートアップ、それから中小企業いくつか見てるんですけれども、ほぼほぼ英国だけを見てる企業はもう皆無に等しいです。もう最初ですね、デイゼロからもグローバルを見据えた戦略をしていて、今日お呼びしている企業さんもそれらのに当てはまる企業さんだと私は信じて呼びました。で、今日オーディエンス来ていただいている方、ありがとうございます。スタートアップの方はですね、ぜひ、こうした事例があるのでですね、グローバル戦略の足がかりとか事例として見ていただく。それから、大企業さんもかなり多く来ていらっしゃいます。このような非常に価値の高い企業さんとのタイアップとかですね、コラボレーションを今後提案することを我々もお手伝いできればと思っております。じゃあ、早速セッションに入っていきたいと思います。Let me introduce change the language. So today I invite great speakers from our networks to cover the latest molecular designing and accelerate API development from two leading companies based in the UK. And one is Cresset plus Stokes, and the other one is Catalysis based in Cardiff. So first speaker will be David. If you turn on your video and microphone. Yes, that's David. And yes, David Farsley, Dr. David Farsley is from Cresset and Talks. And I am in touch with him for over 7 years, I calculated. And he's a commercial director of Cresset. Who brings very effective and convenient molecular designing tools to support small molecules compounds designing and development. David is also directing talks which support DMTA cycle, design, make, test, and analysis to accelerate communication within or without or over the pharmaceutical companies with chemists and biologists. And just for your information, Fujitsu is the Japanese commercial partner in Japan, just agreed. And I will hand over to David.
Yeah, can you just bear with me? Can everyone see my slides okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Great.
So thank you, Mashashi, for the introduction, and thank you to LinkJ to inviting Crescit to speak at this webinar. As Mashashi said, my name is David Bardsey. I'm the commercial director for Crescit. I'm a microbiologist by training, and visited Japan on many occasions, and I hope to be back there soon. I do miss visiting your great country, and I appreciate everyone joining what is late in your day. So thanks for that, and hope you to enjoy the event. So Crescit, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the company, a bit about some of the solutions that we provide, why companies work with us. And the first thing to say, you know, is in the title. It's all about designing molecules that matter, so that it helps the process both in drug discovery, in agrochemicals, flavors and fragrances. So what are we and what do we do? There are two main areas of the Crescit Group companies. One is where we provide expert software tools, and the other area is where we have a number of chemistry consultants to aid people's research in a consultative way. So the whole thing about in silico drug design is it is meant to aid the process in the discovery process. It doesn't give you the exact answer. You know, you hear a lot these days about certain techniques are going to answer all the problems that we've got in the world through AI, through machine learning. It's meant to guide to new ideas, but not give the exact answer. We often joke that if it gave the exact answer, I probably wouldn't be sat here. I'd be probably sat on a yacht somewhere in the Caribbean, because we'd make so much money on providing the exact answer. So design of compounds does not replace the whole process. You still need traditional chemistry, you still need traditional biology. You just might get there a little bit quicker. You do smarter chemistry and smarter biology. So our software has been developed over a number of years, and I think the important thing to say is that it's a multi-platform, and it's for medicinal chemists and computational chemists. So yes, there are hardcore computational chemists who do the design of molecules, but you've got to remember that there are some medicinal chemists who also do design or are interested in design. And I think where molecular design tools fit in compared to traditional world, they're akin to CAD systems for architects and engineers. And the phrase below is from one computational chemist who said, you wouldn't just go out and design a bridge and make it and see if it falls down. You'd actually look at previous models. You'd look at proven algorithms to make sure when you did build the bridge, you were building something that had been used before and it had certain properties. So we shouldn't just go and do wild chemistry and just try the drugs out. We should put some thought into it. And then on the consulting side, not all companies, especially smaller biotech companies, will want to employ computational chemists. So there we actually provide consultants who can both not only do computational chemistry for companies, but also provide additional resource to those companies. And I'll go into that a little bit further on. And again, we cover a number of areas. So as a company, Crescit have been around for 20 years. This is our 20th year of existence. We are a UK-based company. We're based in Cambridge. I often say the original Cambridge because we have Cambridge, Massachusetts as well, where we have an office. And And I think the most important thing is that 16 out of the top 20 pharma companies use Cressit somewhere in their research programs. And I say somewhere in their research programs because they often don't tell us where they use Cressit. As you know, confidentiality is everything in this, and we respect that of our clients, and so they don't always tell us where we've been successful. But the software is an annual model, so if they renew, they must be getting some good answers. And then we have hundreds of customers across the globe. So, you know, we grew initially, well, in Europe, North America, but now we have a wealth of customers in India, China, Japan, and Korea. On the discovery side, the company have delivered over 300 projects to customers globally. And that isn't 300 customers. So we get some customers who may do a project with Cressit, and then they may come back and do another project. We may not see them for a few months, and they may do a different target. So we've done over 300 projects to customers globally. And there, I think I can iterate the globally. You know, we have delivered projects as broad as Australia from the UK, and we delivered projects to China, where ultimately the teams have never met face to face. But I guess that's the joy of working in silico, and today's modern communications and modern technology is capable of doing that. We're a growing company. So we had 20% growth since 2010, so we plan to be around for a lot longer. We're doing well as a company, and that's important because I think in the market we're in, as well as having good products and good infrastructure and good collaboration with our partners, everyone needs quite a lot of patience in the drug discovery area. We know it's not a quick process, so you have to plan for the future and plan for the longer game. And then as a company, as we've grown, we've actually placed staff in strategic regions. So we have 3 main regions we look at as a company, and that's Asia Pacific, Europe, Middle East and Africa, and North America. So the Cressit group of companies, and Mishashi mentioned there's Cressit and there's Talks. I think the company, well, Cressit started out actually with Cressit Discovery. So before there was a software product, the founder actually did strategic consulting with the technology that he had. And today the Cressit Discovery team has grown to a team of around about 20 computational chemists that we have in-house. And their experience is not just as software people. So they don't just click buttons on the demand of our clients. They actually provide strategic direction on the projects they're working on. I think the important thing in our market is that you want to work with companies that understand the process that you're going through and have some knowledge of therapeutic areas. We once actually heard a story from a customer in North America. They said, don't employ people who press software buttons, employ people who know why they're pressing the button in the first place. So it's not just about being able to run something, it's about knowing why you're doing things. Quickly that followed on from the discovery business was the software. And that's where we have Cressit have actually built a good reputation of putting great user interfaces and intuitive software on top of good science. So I'll be honest with you, Cressit don't do all of the science. There's some tremendous science out there that's been developed in universities around the world that comes out as freeware. Cressit will not rewrite science. We will often do collaborations and put wrappers around it. And a great example of that is we have a technique called FEP. And although we are commercializing that, the collaboration is actually with the University of Edinburgh. That's where the software was written. The other thing to say about the software area, the software has always been important, but increasingly important now with more advanced techniques is the high performance computing side of things. So where clients haven't got a high performance computing, we can help with that as well. And the final piece of the jigsaw for the Cressit Group companies is actually the Talks product. which is a collaboration with a company called Elixir Software. And here, instead of being a desktop application, Talks is more of a workflow tool that maps the DMTA, the design, make, test, and analyze process. And the biggest thing that it does is it allows collaboration on the cloud between research groups. And many of our clients are using that to collaborate not only with multi-geography companies, but also with their CROs, people like Catsi, for example, who are speaking next, where a company has to be in regular interaction with that CRO. So I think the biggest thing about Talks is that it's a business change for a company because it brings new infrastructure. And if you said, what does it replace? It actually, the thing it replaces is going through PowerPoint presentation, Excel spreadsheets, Word documents, if you like, before every meeting, you can see live data. So very quickly to mention on the products, Crescit software, we have three main products: Blaze, Flare, and Spark. And I always take this opportunity to actually tell people what a Crescit is. So this Crescit logo, people might say, what is a Crescit? So in medieval times, before we had gas and electric, you used to have a cup that held fire and provided light. And so that is what a Crescit is. And so our founder wanted to bring light to research. And now that explains why all our products have a fire theme. You have Blaze, Flare, and Spark. And if customers want to engage and actually test the technology, any one of those products can be evaluated. So as Mashashi mentioned, we have a partner in Japan, Fujitsu, and they can manage any evaluation of the software. For the discovery side, we do a whole range of things that we can do for people on acting as a CRO for the in silico work. And we engage the normal way that most CROs would with clients, non-confidential conversations, moving to confidential conversations, and then a free proposal of how we go about the work for them. And then the final area, as I mentioned, Talks. You can see very basic. It's difficult to show a web product on a slide, but a very interactive platform that is enabling people to work through the design, the make, the test and analyze cycle on the cloud for companies across the world. I stole this slide for from a recent article, and it does have a look of a bit of a Star Wars, a bit of a a bit of a Hollywood type graphic, but it does demonstrate that where we thought the pipeline for the drug discovery market was perhaps hitting some kind of plateau in 2010-11, over the last few years there has been a new increase in number of drugs coming to market, and I think that's why we want to continue to invest in this area. So we look at traditional comp chemistry software is growing rapidly, but the other area that's growing rapidly not only is wet chemistry, but companies are now beginning to outsource their computational chemistry. And a great surprise to us at Crescit was that we always used to deal with biotech companies who didn't want to employ a computational chemist. So we used to do comp chem for them. But over the last 12 to 18 months, we've noticed that the large pharma, in fact, 3 of the top 5 pharma, have actually outsourced comp chem as well. And mainly down to a couple of reasons. They've been asked by their management to follow what wet chemistry have been doing and outsource and find new ideas and new techniques. But also, comp chems are difficult to find. And so they've come to companies like ourselves to provide an answer. And then the final one is an area that's developing all the time. Workflow tools in the discovery process are becoming even more important, because it used to be where companies had multi-geographies, but you can't find a company now around the world that hasn't got CROs. So your workflow tools that help you interact with your CROs are important. So, we're mindful that we've got to follow markets that are growing to continue to be successful and provide solutions that our customers want. Where do we fit in the discovery cycle? From what I've said, I'm sure you'll understand that software, it lives in the very early stage of the drug discovery cycle. And because of that's where we live, I think this is a bit overexpanded. It's quite a big, it looks like a big area, this. And, other companies will expand this area because that's where they play, but it shows where Crescit software is used. Discovery is used a little bit further, and then Talks is really living across discovery and development. It's used throughout the areas. There's some unique selling points that I'd summarize that I've already mentioned. With Crescit, the underlying importance of the company, and this was really brought from our founder, is that science drives everything. So we are still a heavily scientific company with close to 50 PhDs in the company, a lot of chemists on the application science side, but then a lot of experience in the industry. And the other important thing to say is that we work on a wide range of collaborations with key innovators. We have to keep modern, flexible platforms to fit with people's IT infrastructure. And again, mention that we have a proven application of putting GUIs on top of complex science. The discovery side, as I say, it's an outsourced model. And then on Talks, we really do support the whole process, design, make, test, and analyze, and bringing new platforms into companies. I have mentioned already that we play heavily in pharmaceutical, tech, biotech, and agrochem, but I'm also mindful there might be some people on here from academia and research institutes, and that's where our collaborations come from, and that's where we work heavily with as well, with academia as well as just the large companies. And we have key opinion leaders in all of our geographies. And in fact, one of our members of our scientific advisory board is actually in Japan. So we are mindful that we keep our ties with academia because that's where the next science is coming from. And so we support academia with teaching licenses, and we've done joint projects with a number of universities around the world. I'm coming to the next to last slide. Probably reiterates what I've said. We see ourselves still as a very collaborative partner to work with. Science is our underpinning important aspect of what we do. And we will continue to provide accessible, easy to use software and consulting for our customers. We have scientific credibility, and we are a company that really looks to bring people in and grow. And we have a commitment to our customers. We have user meetings pre-COVID. We actually saw a crowd like this. We've moved to a more online model for meetings, but once we see the end of COVID, we expect to have meetings around the world. And we were actually planning a meeting in Japan before COVID hit. So we hope to do that in the future and share some of our experiences with the Japan audience. If you're interested in some of the areas that I've covered today, the easiest way to keep in touch with Crescit is through our computational chemistry newsletter. There's no commitment to become a customer to receive that. You can just find us on the website and learn about any area of our business. It is very complete newsletter in that it mentions our products, but it also mentions some key presentations, posters, and some of our collaborations that we have with discovery partners. So with that, I think I am just about on time. So thanks for your attention, and look forward to the panel discussion later on.
Thank you, David, and thank you for keeping the time. It's precise, 20 minutes. Right. Yes, so David explained the very high level of the introduction of Crescit and the Talks, and they are always looking for like a client convenience and now in taking talks, the platform. And more scientific words, Crescent will be hopefully in Japan in autumn for CBI conference held in Tokyo. So scientists will come over to Tokyo to explain further for the technical side. Great, thanks very much, David.
Thank you.
And yes, next speaker is Joel. Please turn on your camera and microphone. Yes, good, thank you. So Dr. Joao Madeira Duo, Head of Business Development of Catalysis in Europe. I met Joao early this year, I believe, and I'm quite impressed for their company profile and portfolios. And part of his talk will be something like a green chemistry, which may be new for the many audiences today. They are proposing new designing and new concept to prepare compounds and more sustainable ways to considering the environmental impacts using catalysts and media in the processes. And Catalysis is composed with a very talented the chemist and developing their business mainly in the US and Europe, and now challenging to Japan. So this will be mentioned in the presentation and the later panel discussion. Good. All right, so I stop talking and I'll hand over to Joel.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Masashi. Thank you for the invitation to be here, and thank you to Link J for the invitation, and to everyone attending. I understand the time difference. It's a bit late in the day for you, so thank you very much for that, and thank you to David for a great presentation. And yeah, excited to be here and to tell you a bit about Catalysis. I'll share my screen so you can see the slides. So the first thing to mention is that the title of the talk, it's actually a bit different from the one announced. I will talk a bit about green chemistry as well, but I thought it would be more interesting to talk about how the right partner can really accelerate your molecule development and maximize the chances of success. And not to give away the secret sauce here on the title slide, but basically the CMC development of a new molecule can be seen as a big risk management exercise. So the CMC lead will always be looking to minimize the risk by making the right decisions, avoiding the main pitfalls that one tends to see, and making sure that we have the right approaches, the phase-appropriate approaches to the development is quite important. Here at Catalysis, we often talk about this quality, speed, cost triangle, and managing these three elements is quite important throughout the development. For instance, as a general rule of thumb, early on, speed is quite important. Maybe we can live with a process that is a bit suboptimal. We're not getting 90+ yield, but we need to move the molecule through the development. And considering the great attrition rate that there is in the industry and so on, speed tends to be more important. On the other hand, the cost really depends on the budgets of the companies, and smaller companies or large pharma will have different views on this. The right partner will also be able to look into your project and understand the goals and the targets for that molecule. And again, generally speaking, smaller biotechs and big pharma will have very different challenges. Smaller biotechs normally don't tend to bring the asset all the way to the commercial stage. There tends to be either an exit or a partnering stage at some point. So we're talking normally more bringing the molecule towards the right milestone, and that has its own challenges. Also, smaller biotechs don't tend to have experts in certain subjects, so it's very important to have the right partner for that. Whereas big pharma, it's very different. The company will bring the asset to the market. There's different challenges, whether we're talking early or late development, but other things come into play, such as the life cycle management of the asset, which again, I'll talk about in a second. So all of this just shows how important it is to have the right partner, but the underpinning point in there is the excellence. Everyone's looking for excellence, be it in drug discovery, as we saw with David, or more towards the process chemistry, as I'm going to talk about today. And that leads to companies looking for long-term partners for the development of their asset. So rather than having tactical projects, really having the right partner is quite important. So my advice to people out there, and I'm sure you're doing that, is make sure that you know your partner, make sure that you do your due diligence, go and see them on site, go and meet the team, because having the right partner will really impact your chances of success of bringing the asset to the market. As David was saying, it's not just about pushing buttons, but knowing why you push the button. So we always say in our case, it's not about doing a screen, it's understanding why we do the screening of that type of chemistry. Data is data, but what do you do with the data? That's what really determines the success of your asset. So it's the knowledge, it's the added value. So it's bringing the added value to the conversation and away from cost. So with all of that in mind and all of that as an introduction, I want to talk to you about CATSAI, an innovation partner for pharma companies around the world. And CATSAI has been around for over 10 years now. We are based in the UK. The company started as a spin-off from AstraZeneca and started as being a provider for catalysis screening, hence the name CATSAI. We now work in the whole of the drug substance development space, and we are crossing over to the drug product as well. But we are over 100 people in the UK now, and we work with clients all around the world, Europe, US, both East and West Coast. And I'm quite pleased to say that we work with clients in Japan as well. And we've been, for the past couple of years, helping Japanese companies developing their APIs as well. So our mission is there on the slides, developing economically and environmentally sustainable manufacturing processes so that pharma can deliver affordable, best-in-class small molecule therapeutics. And this is quite important, the economically and environmentally sustainable. So obviously, cost of goods is always important, and trying to optimize that is key to all players in the pharma space. But the environmentally sustainable is very important as well. And this means different things to different people, this environmentally sustainable. So for small biotechs, as you optimize the route, obviously we're talking about the PMI, the process mass index, saving water, saving carbon dioxide, and the carbon footprint is quite important as well. For large farmers, we talk more about the life cycle management of the process. That tends to be a bit different. So we're talking, depending on the scale of the manufacture, we need to understand what's the carbon footprint and other green chemistry indexes related to that. We need to talk about supply chain assurance. For instance, do the routes have or use precious metals that are not only increasing in price, but getting harder and harder to get the handle of because of political and economical instability around the world. So one needs to understand what can be done to decrease this carbon footprint for the life cycle of the projects. And we do that through different techniques. So not only calculating the improvements for the different routes, but also using the most advanced techniques out there. For instance, we work with the American Chemistry Society and use their green chemistry tools on all of our processes as well. So as I was saying, and not to repeat myself, but CATSAI as an innovation partner has this scientifically led approach to bring the perfect for purpose solution to your needs. So starting there on the top, the process design and development, in very simple terms, this could be any way from designing a completely new route to your API, or if the company has a route that works but has some issues, we can look to optimize key steps of that route, be it because of yield, conversion, or because of cost of goods, or trying to avoid certain intermediates in there as well. Going down on that line, Catalysis, as I mentioned, the company has a very strong background in catalysis, and this is something that we are very proud of. And we work with a large number of pharma companies around the world in these key bond-forming steps that involve catalysis as well. And we are equipped to work with potent compounds. We currently work in the OEB4 banding, so 1 to 10 micrograms per cubic meter. In Q4, end of Q3 this year, we'll start doing OEB5, so that's 0.1 to 1 to 10 to 1. And we see this as quite important. Certainly more than half of the new assets being developed, they are very toxic in nature. Pipelines are getting more and more toxic. So the company is positioning itself to really help pharma companies around the world. On the top right, the analytical development is quite important, and we have a large number of analytical chemists on site, and we have a whole site dedicated just to analytical chemistry. And this is quite important because a good analytical chemistry really underpins all of the development of a molecule. You need to understand what's going on in the reaction, you need to understand what you have in there, and that is only possible when you have a strong analytical component to your processes. Recently, we launched a new line for material science and solid state studies. The idea is to start breaking down, together with the pre-formulation, to break down the barriers of the drug substance in the drug product development, and making sure that we can have the right downstream processes, isolation, but also salt screening and so on, to help you develop the best process for your molecule. So again, this reiterates what I was saying in the beginning. Having a partner for your API development that shares the same values as your company is quite important. So it's important this company understands what the opportunity means, what your goals are, where you are in the development of your molecule. So you need to make sure that there's a good fit between your project needs and your partner. So your needs will be evolving over the life cycle of your project. So having a partner that can provide phase-dependent solutions that really meet your expectations is the key in here. So why CATSI, and why CATSI is this innovation partner that can help you developing your API? First of all, it's the pedigree of the company. Coming from the big pharma, we have this understanding of the state-of-the-art ways of working and processes and best practices that are used in the industry. We've done hundreds of early development projects, and it says dozens in the late development is probably in the hundreds as well now. And we've worked with companies all around the world. We work with half of the top 10 pharma companies, and we've worked with companies across the spectrum of different sizes, and that includes purely virtual companies as well, companies that don't have any wet labs or don't do any wet chemistry activities. So they relied purely and solely on us to develop that. And this is underpinned by an ethos around the company and the collective knowledge that we have. But from that list, I'll just bring the first one, the consultative approach. And again, to reiterate what David was saying, it's quite important to have someone that does more than providing your data, someone that really adds value and has the knowledge to understand what the data means and what that means in the context of the development of your API. It's quite important to then make sure that you hit the different milestones and progress swiftly and without losing any time, thereby accelerating the development of your API. So in the early development, there's different tasks that we're looking at. So for instance, if we're looking at new routes, the ideation and invention of the new routes, that is done not only using the scientific knowledge around the company, but also with computer-aided synthesis tools that we have, and really understanding the reaction. What are the different levers that one can use to really have the best possible phase-appropriate route? So looking at the different quality targets, the design space, and this manufacturability assessment to make sure that we are progressing the right route forwards. That includes also the demo batches that could be used either as a proof of concept or towards the, for instance, toxicity batch that most companies out there tend to use the 1 to 5 kilo range, non-GMP. So having a partner that can help you expedite your development towards that is quite important as well. And then once POC is established, start thinking about scale up. What are the critical process parameters that one needs to think about? Different impurities, can we identify and track those? So having the analyticals behind this is quite important, and have a science that is enabling. So start thinking about, as I mentioned, the green chemistry, start thinking about the material science aspect of the route, and see what we can do to bring this asset to the next stage. When we're talking about later stage, generally it's a bit different. So there's the process formalization, development, optimization, scale up, really understanding the process, but also the robustness of the process. Because if at this stage, we probably know a bit better what's the scale that we want the process to perform at. So doing that knowledge gap assessment and seeing what are the CQAs, the CPPs, and really understand these to have commercial route options that can be brought forwards. And the right partner should also help you with your RSM strategies and make sure that the knowledge transfer is done. So whether or not the API development is coupled to material supply, or whether that knowledge is being transferred into a partner, it's quite important to make sure that it's excellence of the development is there at all times. And again, coupled or decoupled from the material supply. Going back to the sustainability side and green chemistry, we look at the PMI, process mass index, analytical method greenness scores, IGAL calculations, process input classifications, and this life cycle assessment that I've talked about before. So it's quite important to look at this not only from a corporate responsibility side of things, but also good chemistry is by nature green chemistry. So good process will be less wasteful and will give you the best options in there. So talking a bit about our people, as David was saying, people are key, and making sure you have the right workforce in your company is quite important. At CATSI, 80% of our workforce has a PhD, and many of them have industry experience before joining CATSI. Not only that, we have a team of technical directors that are in charge of the different lines within the company, and they all work together, and they are all based at the same site in Cardiff. And what they do is they ensure that the best processes are brought into our ways of working, and also that a lot of knowledge is used in there. So we have the technical directors all with 20+ experience in big pharma. In terms of facilities, we have everything you'd expect from an innovation partner plus more. So we have the normal hyphenated techniques, HPLC, UPLCs, but importantly, we have this 10-meter glove box that allows us to do projects in the absence of oxygen, but also in-house NMR, which is something you don't tend to see much. But all of this works together with our staff to bring state-of-the-art technology to our processes. In terms of the material science in pre-formulation, again, it's quite hard to explain what we do in this 20 minutes, and I'm aware of time on this talk. But it's important to say that we do have this salt screening, selection capability, polymorph screening, crystal design, and we can do this developability assessment, excipient, micronization assessment. The idea being we want to break down the barriers between drug substance and drug product and make sure that the development is done with this line of sight in mind to help, again, expedite the development. In terms of the analytical science, we are now bringing on board new techniques such as the ICP-MS for quantification of metals, stability cabinets for understanding of the stability of API, and we will have the GMP certification at the end of the year. So that's a big milestone for us as a company. I have different case studies. I'll just very quickly talk about this one. The presentation, I believe, is being shared, so you'll be able to see others. And there's more case studies on our website, catsci.com. If you want to have a look in there, there's different case studies in there. But this is just to show the importance of the work we can do for clients. So this big pharma company approached us. They had this process that was using bromine, and that could not be used at large scale because of all the safety concerns around it. So that would mean they would need to build a whole new plant just for this and alter the plant. So we're talking millions in investment. So by working with us, we were able to swap the process and use NBS rather than bromine. We were able to avoid solvent swaps, which is always a big thing when you go into large-scale production and plant production. We are able to do just the one crystallization from the reaction mixture. So with that, we were able to get much higher yields in consistent purity, which is something the process didn't have before. And what does that mean? And we have some fact and figures there at the bottom, and I understand there are some people here in the audience today that are not from big pharma or from the pharma industry, but that means that we're able to lower the process mass index, waste a lot less water, reduce that by half, solvent waste by 23%. And when you translate that into day-to-day metrics, that means, for instance, taking 140 cars off the roads for 1 year. And that's what we look in terms of CO2 saved. It's making sure that all the processes are much greener in nature. And then when we developed this process and it was transferred to the manufacturing plant, it was transferred right first time. And this is quite important. Again, going back to the quality, speed, cost triangle to talk about not only the money saved, but the time saved as well. So we are able to expedite the development of new medicines. So this is my contact details. Please make a note if you'd like to get in touch with us. There's a lot of information on our website, and I'm quite happy to schedule any calls with you afterwards. And also just to make a mention there to the Queen's Awards that we received early this year that really recognizes the growth that we've been having at CatSci. So again, thank you very much for your time, and I'm quite happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Good, Joel. Thank you very much for your presentation. I'm sorry for the limitation of time, and maybe better to have more like a case studies because it's quite nice, and having more energy, toxicity, and what time strains is improved. So maybe I will share the audiences for the further information plus a slide having more like details in the topic. Great. Thank you. We have 10-15 minutes more, so we want to shift to the panel discussion, and I will welcome Takahashi-san from LinkJ. So he has got great experience in a pharmaceutical company. So maybe can I hand over the first question to Takahashi-san?
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Shunichi Takahashi. As Masashi mentioned, I worked for a pharmaceutical company for 25 plus years. Specifically, in the past 8 years, I was responsible for open innovation and research collaboration as a regional head of Japan in the companies. So maybe I can start the questions. So based upon my experience, I think from the pharmaceutical company point of view, there are 3 key success factors to drive collaboration. Number 1, there must be innovative technologies. Number 2, internal sponsor need to be identified. And number 3, there must be an optimal project in the company. So if any of these are missing, the collaboration doesn't work. And once it doesn't work, it will never happen again to collaborate with a company. That's the reality. And here, in case of the research collaboration for medicinal chemistry or new modalities are a little bit tricky. So because they are kind of the therapeutic platform technologies across the research groups. So besides, the optimal project needs to be identified from the ongoing project. So it seems to be challenging to identify the sponsors and the project for the collaboration. So my question here is, so have you ever experienced such difficulties or challenges to identify the appropriate partners? And also, if so, how do you suggest identifying a caretaker or right project for your collaboration with the company? So that's my first question.
I'll go first if you like. You know, I think you're saying something that's very true. I think if you progress an opportunity in a company and more people have vision of that, and then it fails, to get back in there is a long process. So I think the important thing in our experience is it's a little bit like drug discovery. If it's going to fail it fast. So we only really progress the projects where we really believe we can help. It's difficult to say no, but if we really believe we can't help, we say no. And where the power to say no comes from is from within the scientists we've got within the team. So their experience, they have to be involved at a very early stage with a minimum number of people. And only if both parties say, let's go forward, it moves forward. But it's a very good point you have.
Absolutely, David. Just to second what you were saying, and yourself, Takahashi-san, if the first project doesn't go well, it's very hard to have another project with that company. And this goes into the importance of having the right partner and trying to have a more longer-term relationship with these companies. Often we look at the project and we don't onboard it. We refuse to propose for that project because it's not the right project for us. And if we don't think we can add value to the company by onboarding the project, we'll just put our hands up and say, well, this is not us. You'll be better served elsewhere. And that is quite important. And that's something that I always say to our partners around the world is, if we don't take a project, you should see that as something positive, because that means that we're being honest with you and we're only working with you where we can add value. So as David was saying, kill it early. If we're not the right person, pass it to someone else that can help, and look to be a proper partner and put your commercial interests aside.
Good.
Good.
May I continue the second question? Actually, I have. So, there are the many different technologies currently available for AI drug discovery and process optimization. And I heard that many audience include the employee of the companies. So maybe they have some interest. So in many cases, as either David or Joao already mentioned, the big company may have some expertise, and the small company may not have it. So, but they need to select or evaluate your technologies in order to implement into the company. So, how can we identify or due diligence the right technologies for each companies? That may be the big questions without having the real project. Maybe one solution is to provide the trial programs or milestone payment type of the partnerships. So how do you think about it?
Well, maybe I'll go first this time, David.
Yeah,
talking about the biotechs versus the big pharma, you are right. It can be quite different, and big pharma have the very specialized departments, and smaller biotechs might not have that. And normally they tend to rely on consultants for different parts of the development. Another thing that we need to understand in terms of big pharma is why are they outsourcing the work? Is it because of lack of internal resources, or is it because they are looking for a specialist provider on certain areas? So understanding that is quite important. And there's more, as you were mentioning, Takashi-san, a milestone type of contracts out there, just sharing the rewards and the risk behind it. This is something that we are seeing, and is a trend that we're keeping an eye out for. We don't see this as much in the big pharma space, to be honest with you, because then that ties the company into IP rights and milestone payments and so on. So we're not seeing as much of that, but that's certainly something that biotechs can explore to their advantage. So share the risk, share the rewards, and surely a win-win situation can be built in there.
From our point of view, yes, we do offer evaluations, and we even do some smaller discovery projects as a proof of concept. I think the reason for doing the evaluation is as important as why you're going to get the software in the first place. So if you're just going to sign up for a 30-day evaluation of software or technology, make sure you've got something to do with it, or it's the right time to do it. There's a phrase that goes around in our industry that if you haven't got any skin in the game, you're not going to learn anything. So, choose something that you can see a viable result from. In the absence of a project, to put it on, we have a number of scientific case studies where they can repeat the work done previously by another person. Usually those case studies are from academic groups because the pharma companies don't reveal their case studies. But I think that's the important thing. If you're going to evaluate, it can be as important as why you're going to outsource in the first place. Don't just evaluate for the sake of evaluation, because there's not many people with spare time to do that in the industry anymore.
That's good. Thank you. Cool. Maybe Musashi, so you can.
Yes, I see one person from the audience raise hand. Maeda-san, you have any question? If you have, can we put the chat, or, oh, sorry, it's difficult to put you in the audiences. Sorry, my apologies for the logistics, but yes, if you have any questions, please put in the comments. Excuse me for extending 3 more minutes because I have one question. So this is the UK-Japan life science session. So what is your difficulty doing business for Japan? Because you've been successful in the North America plus European market. What is your biggest challenge to do business in Japan, David?
I think one of our biggest challenges, I think the biggest challenge for UK companies or Western companies is to have patience. Decision making can be a little bit longer, but also to have a partner there that helps the cultural divide. We've worked with yourself, Musashi, but we're making far more progress now that we actually have a technical person based in Tokyo. So I think the challenge is being there often enough was a challenge which we now feel like we're getting over. But I would say, I don't want to be too cruel on Japan. I think patience is something you need throughout our industry. There are no really quick decisions in biotech and large pharma. So patience.
Culture. Thank you. Joe, any comments?
No, I think David is absolutely right. The decision-making process tends to be a lot slower than we see in other countries. But I'll rather highlight the positives, and Japan does have a culture of innovation that plays really well to this field, into the pharma space. So it is something that we are very interested on and starting new collaborations in Japan. But definitely the need to be more present physically and having a longer lead times in terms of starting new collaborations is something that really stands out.
Great, thank you for your comment. And my opinion is it's quite difficult to have like a point connection. So maybe using like ecosystems like LinkJ will be very useful to engage further development. All right, thank you very much for speakers and Takahashi-san.